The bells should have rung for morning prayer, but the first sound that clawed its way across the spires of King's Landing was a roar. Low, rumbling, hollow, like some vast beast waking below the streets. It shivered through the flagstones of the Red Keep and rattled the shutters of hidden septs, made crippled beggars look up in terror, and fishmongers clutch their baskets as though a living tide crept beneath them. The sun was only a pale promise on the eastern horizon, yet the sky above the city began to pulse with an uncanny green gleam, an aurora birthed not of heavens but of vaults and catacombs soaked in wildfire. In the Tower of the Hand, Lord Carleton Chelstead fell to his knees, fingers splayed across cool stone that thrummed like a drumhead beneath him. He had begged, raved, threatened to resign when the king would not listen, and in the hush before dawn, he had resolved to steal into Aerys' chambers once more. One last plea, yet now the plea died in his throat. Choked by rising heat, the very foundations moaned. A geyser of viridescent flame burst through a drain outside his window, twisting skyward in an emerald column before collapsing into a rain of burning droplets. They shimmered, lingered, devoured. Soldiers on the wall above shrieked as the liquid fire clung to mail and flesh alike. Across the yard, a squire named Willem Wild watched his sworn knight collapse in convulsions, armor blooming with blossoms of wildfire. Willem had never seen a man melt until that instant. He turned to run, but the ground bucked, tossing him against a buttress. A second gout erupted from a sewer grate, and for an instant the squire was painted in light so bright it bled color from the world. His scream vanished beneath the thunderous detonation, swallowed by a wind that smelled of pine resin and rot. At the heart of the Red Keep, Sir Jaime Lannister stood on the steps below the Iron Throne, gloved hand tight around the hilt of his sword. The air was sharp with madness, real, tangy, metallic. Aerys Targaryen paced before him in a frenzy, nails torn, silver-gilt beard ragged with neglect. Thin streaks of dried blood lurked under each fingertip, where he had clawed himself in restless nights. Pyromancers huddled nearby, robed in sooty crimson, their eyes reflecting newborn conflagrations beyond the open balustrades. "You hear them, Kingslayer," Aerys whispered, though no one had yet named Jaime so. "Do you hear the city sing?" A cracked laugh spilled from his lips. "They wanted my crown. Let them burn with it. Baratheon will find only ash and ghosts." Another explosion shuddered the throne room. Dust rained from vaulted ribs above. One of the pyromancers crossed himself in silent prayer, not to the Seven, but to whatever secret god kept wildfire's secrets. Across the floor, Kingsguard brothers, Sir Jonathan Darry and Sir Barristan Selmy, stood frozen in sick amazement. They had sworn to defend the king with their lives. None had sworn to defend his madness. Yet vows were iron. Jaime's pulse hammered at his throat. Through the tall windows he saw pillars of green flame leaping along Visenya's hill, curling over rooftops like dragons of light. The city was burning before his eyes, and every second he waited was a second stolen from the small folk. Cobblers, barmaids, children clutching rag dolls. He tasted copper on his tongue and realized he'd bitten the inside of his cheek. Far below, in Flea Bottom, the night's mummers woke to cataclysm. Rats stampeded through alleyways, squealing as tongues of wildfire licked at wooden walls. A midwife, Mega, crouched over a woman in labor. She had coaxed babes from wombs through plague and famine, but when the cobbles glowed and the birthing straw ignited, she flung her shawl across the newborn and fled into smoke. The mother's scream mingled with cackling flames, a lullaby for a world unmade. On Visenya's hill, the great sept of Baelor began to ring its bells at last, wild, panicked peals that clashed with the roar of burning pitch. Septons rushed to rouse novices, but when a child flung open the western doors, heat punched inward like a living fist. Wildfire coursed in rivulets down the marble steps, holy statues flickering green as if the gods themselves wore Targaryen colors. The stranger's visage glowed brightest, a skull crowned in fire. In the maiden vault, Queen Rhaella pressed her palms against cool glass, though even here the panes already sweated with fever. She felt her unborn child stir, one last flicker of life in her womb, half starved by fear and darkness. Her ladies tugged at her sleeves, urging flight deeper into the keep, but Rhaella kept her gaze fixed on King's Landing. When she was a girl, the city had been a tapestry of red roofs and banners flapping above bustling markets. Now she watched it drown in Viridian seas. And for the first time she envied her Dragonlord ancestors who had died before beholding this shame. In a courtyard below, Varys the Master of Whisperers glided like a pink ghost among staggers of smoke. His silks were simple tonight, sewn with hidden pockets. Within them nestled parchments, sealed and unsealed, threads of secrets twisted through a lifetime of service. He murmured reassurances to sobbing washerwomen and bewildered scribes, guiding them toward a postern gate. Always the spider, weaving exits. Yet even Varys felt panic's talons when a wave of flame erupted against the curtain wall, bathing his bald scalp in savage light. On the King's Road beyond the Gate of the Gods, Lord Tywin Lannister reined his destrier to a halt. Before him rose a column of smoke so thick it blotted stars. The sky danced with malign auroras, a realm of serpents coiled in green-white coils. Tywin's host, gold lions on crimson cloaks, spread behind him for leagues. They had come to take the city in righteous fury at Aerys' betrayals. They had not come, however, prepared for sorcery waking beneath the cobbles. Sir Kevan drew beside his brother and stared, wordless. For once, their shared blood offered no counsel. Tywin's jaw was a gate clamped shut on rage. He saw a city burning that might have been his. Spoils of victory, now consumed by a madman's pyre. Behind him marched rank upon rank of men who would soon breach walls only to find charred bones and rivers of molten stone. The Lion of Casterly Rock tasted ashes already. Back in the throne room, another blast struck so near the walls shook and groaned. Mortar cracked. A stained glass dragon shattered inward, spraying shards across the floor in a glittering cascade. Aerys flung his arms wide, laughing, spittle flying like sparks. "Beautiful," he crooned. "Do you see, Jaime? No stag will sit my throne. No wolf or lion will lord above my city. They will remember Aerys the third dragon." He caught his error, eyes flicking sidelong, then continued with fresh hysteria. "The last dragon, they will say. The king who would not yield. Medine." Sir Barristan took a step forward. Sand grated under his boot, ground from shattered glass. "Your Grace, we must flee. The wildfire spreads faster than timber burns. We must move you to the dungeons. Their stone might—" "Silence!" Aerys shrieked. Spittle dripped from his beard. "To the dungeons? So rats may gnaw my crown? No. Better the gods take me in dragonfire than wait meek in catacombs. I will watch them burn." His gaze snapped to Jaime. "Fetch me my pyromancer's boy. I want more." Jaime's chest rose and fell as though he'd run a mile. He thought of Cersei in the west, of the arrogant tilt of her chin, of cherry sunlight in her hair, and of their father camped beyond the walls. He thought of the vows he had sworn before Septon and crowd. Seven oaths binding his life to a man unraveling before him. Another blast rocked the keep. He staggered, catching himself on a pillar. Below, small folk scrambled toward the dragon gate, only to find iron-bound doors fused shut by heat. Panic surged like a living ocean. Mothers passed infants over shoulders. A one-legged veteran hobbled forward until the crowd surged and he vanished beneath splashing boots. Men clawed at gates with bloody fingernails, screaming for mercy none would grant. Above them, archers on the walls broke and fled, for the stones beneath their feet glowed like forged steel. The wildfire behaved unlike ordinary flame. It flowed, creeping uphill, leaping gaps, pouring through windows as if drawn by breath. Whole streets vanished behind curtains of green. At the Street of Silk, a pleasure house went up in a single humph, its silken banners tearing free and burning as they drifted skyward. Pyres set loose among the stars. From the river came new terror. Casks of wildfire, sealed decades ago, broke loose in the blackwater beneath the city's wharves as warehouses collapsed. They bobbed like nightmarish corks before bursting, churning the black water rush into a furious cauldron. Fishermen's skiffs ignited in chain reactions, each explosion flinging showers of burning jade across the water. Even the river seemed to burn, as though the very gods conspired to erase the city from the earth. Inside the Red Keep, Rhaella allowed her ladies to lead her deeper, yet every corridor was another furnace. Marble cracked, tapestries kindled, servants stumbled past with hair ablaze, howling. A chunk of ceiling fell behind them, sending up a storm of sparks. Rhaella felt heat on her back so fierce she believed her gown would burst into flame at any moment. Still she moved, driven not by hope, but by dim instinct to live just long enough to birth whatever future yet stirred in her womb. In the cells under Maegor's holdfast, Princess Elia lay upon damp straw, one arm draped over young Rhaenys, the other cradling Aegon, who fussed at the acrid stench seeping through cracks. When a tremor rattled iron bars, dust snowed from the ceiling. Elia peered into darkness and thought of her doomed Dornish son, of Oberyn perhaps galloping northward or dying on some distant road, never knowing how the world twisted upon this night. She whispered lullabies in a tongue of hot deserts and cool cedar groves, yet the words dried in her mouth. There was no water left here. Soon, she feared, no air. Sir Barristan turned to Jaime, his blue eyes awash with reflected flame. "We swore to keep him safe," he murmured. Jaime swallowed. "And the realm?" "The realm," Sir Jonathan answered bleakly, "is already aflame." Eris spun toward them, sudden suspicion blazing. "Conspire, do you?" He licked cracked lips. "Traitors wear white cloaks as well. Perhaps I should burn the lot of you." Pyromancer. The eldest pyromancer shuffled forward, arms folded within sleeves charred at the cuffs. "Your Grace, prepare more jars. We'll open the dragon pit herself. Let the city see the true breath of kings." "Ben?" The pyromancer bowed, eyes glittering with fatal devotion. Even he must know there was no city left to see, yet men who worship flame seldom fear it. Jaime tasted bile. He looked to Sir Barristan again, but the old knight stood rooted, a statue carved of honor and hesitation. Jaime took a breath that scorched his lungs. "We have to act," he whispered, voice low enough only Jonathan heard. "Break your oath, you mean?" Jonathan replied. His face was ash pale. "To keep the one that mattered." Outside, the white sword tower cracked halfway up its height. It leaned, groaning, then collapsed in a roar of shattered stone. Dust billowed outward, engulfing the courtyard in opaque haze. Windows in Maegor's holdfast shattered under the shockwave. Bells within the sept clanged wildly as the tower plunged from view, sound chased by a wail rising from every throat that still drew breath within the keep. Tywin's host saw the tower fall from afar. A murmur moved through the ranks like wind in dry grass. Some men made signs to ward off evil, others muttered that the city itself wept. Tywin never looked away from the burning skyline. Flecks of green light played across his lion helm. The world was burning, and so was his chance at swift restoration of order. Yet duty demanded he press on. He gestured, and trumpets blared the advance. They would breach the gate, or die beneath it. Smoke, or no. In the throne room, the roof groaned again. A beam split. Sparks gusted down like malevolent snow. Jaime knew there was little time. He looked upon the iron throne, forged by Balerian's breath. Blades fused in an agony of metal. All at once, it seemed mocking. Swords bent toward ruin as the realm now bent. "Eris," he said, abandoning title. The single word was raw, a fracture in silk. The king's head jerked. Silver hair hung in greasy ropes. "What did you call me?" "Listen," Jaime said. "There is no victory in ash. Order your pyromancers to quench the flames. Let the people live. You may yet be king of something more than bones." N. For a heartbeat, Jaime believed he glimpsed a flicker of reflection, a man glimpsing horror in his own design. Then Eris's mouth twisted. He laughed, and laughter climbed into shriek. "You think I'd let Robert Baratheon rape my corpse of a kingdom? No. Let them choke on smoke. Let them remember dragons. He pivoted to the pyromancer. Ignite the Red Keep herself. We shall ride the storm to glory. The pyromancer bowed and turned. Jaime moved. His sword cleared its scabbard quicker than thought, bright steel flashing in green candlelight. In that instant, the boy of 17 died. The man who remained thrust forward, point aimed at the pyromancer's spine. The tip struck between ribs. The old alchemist gasped, eyes wide in wonder, as though he'd just glimpsed secrets beyond mortal ken. Then he sagged, crimson froth on his lips. His torch clattered against marble, sputtering. Ser Yonathr shouted. Sir Barristan lunged, too late. Jaime pivoted, sword sweeping, knocking the approaching pyromancer's torch aside before it kissed, spilled wildfire pooling where fragments of the stained glass lay. Sparks hissed in the liquid, sputtered out, but smoke rose bitter and black. Aerys screamed, a wordless keen part rage, part disbelief. He raised a hand like a claw, pointing. Kingslayer. Still, the name before the act. Jaime felt fate coil tight within him. He stepped over the dying alchemist, turned sword point upon his king. Sir Barristan's voice cracked through the din. Jaime, no. But vows were a complicated thing. Jaime had sworn to guard the king's life, and to protect the innocent. One oath had devoured the other. He thought of the babe sucked from its mother's breast by flame. He thought of Elia clutching her belly, of Tywin arrayed outside. He thought of the realm. The Iron Throne loomed behind Aerys. Spines and jagged knives, thousands hammered into horror. The king stumbled back against it, robes catching, tearing. A blade nicked his forearm, blood dribbled. His eyes were pits of night, no sanity left within. Jaime raised his sword. He saw his reflection in the polished steel. A young lion with eyes gone hard as garnet. He took one step, then another. Aerys' lips moved in some silent curse. Before Jaime struck, the walls convulsed. Somewhere deep within, another cache erupted. A blast so violent the floor heaved upward like a deck in a storm. A pillar fractured. Obsidian pieces rained. Ser Yonathr was flung aside, helm ringing. Barristan fell to one knee, gauntlet braced. The shockwave flung Jaime against a stair. He lost grip on his sword. It skittered away, clanging down steps. Pain flared in his shoulder. He clawed upright, ears ringing, vision blurred by dust. Shapes moved, Aerys scrambling, swordless, bloodied. A creature cornered. Jaime reached for his blade, fingers brushing hilt. Firelight danced across the metal surface. A mirror of the ruin consuming King's Landing. He heard the keening of the city, ghosts howling through streets. He thought of Cersei again, of how she would judge him. Then, from the shattered window, rose a new cry. Horns, distant but rising. Lannister trumpets announcing the approach of Tywin's vanguard. Aerys heard them too. He threw his head back and laughed, and from within that laughter came one last order, shrieked at Barristan Selmy even as the old knight staggered to his feet. "Bring me the boy's head!" Barristan's lips parted. He looked to Jaime, to Aerys, to the flames dancing beyond the broken glass. 1,000 stories would be written of that moment, of the finest knight in Westeros wavering between crown and conscience. Yet history paused on a blade's edge. Jaime's fingers closed around his sword. Smoke swirled around them, thick and choking. But above, the dawn at last breached the horizon, a thin line of pink cutting through night's shroud. And within that faint light, the green fires raged on, an infernal halo crowning the Red Keep. The Iron Throne waited, cold and hungry. Jaime rose, sword in hand, the clang of foes at the gate echoing below corridors, already half ruined. He inhaled wood smoke, flesh smoke, the reek of burning oil, and something else, the scent of decision wrought in steel. For one heartbeat, time stood still. Then he stepped forward, toward destiny written not by bards but by his own unflinching will. A.K. Sir Jaime Lannister advanced a single step, feeling the floor quiver beneath his boot soles. as though the keep had developed a monstrous heartbeat of its own. Smoke eddied around him in tattered veils, swallowing the shattered daylight and painting every surface in shades of corpse green and ash gray. His shoulder throbbed from the fall. His sword felt heavier than Valyrian steel should, but will could lend muscle that sinew alone could not. Ahead of him, Arista Targaryen scrabbled back up the high steps toward the Iron Throne, robes dragging in the shards of fallen crystal. The man looked smaller now. Less a dragon, more a cornered rat. Yet the madness that shone from his lilac eyes blazed brighter for every inch he retreated. Behind Jaime, Barristan Zelmy regained his feet with a grunt, ivory cloak scorched and spattered. One gauntlet cupped the back of his neck, where a shard had scored flesh. Bright blood threaded his fingers, but his grip on his own sword never loosened. Between them, the body of the slain pyromancer steamed where it lay, puddling wildfire hissing beneath the corpse like venomous sap. Every hiss sent a spray of emerald sparks licking outward across the floor. Aerys's sandals slipped on those sparks. He regained his balance only by seizing the throne's lowest spikes, jagged steel that tore his palms anew. Fresh blood pattered over the fused blades beneath him, tiny crimson stars dying on dull iron. Still, he drew himself taller, and somehow his voice, ragged, cracked, filled the cavernous hall. Traitors, all traitors! Another tremor staggered the keep. Far off, masonry boomed like thunder. The smell of spent mortar floated through the windows. Jaime could taste it on his tongue. Brick dust, funeral ash, and something strangely sweet curling in from the city below. That sweetness, he would learn later, was tallow. Whole storehouses gone alight where candlemakers had once plied their pale trade. Barristan stepped to Jaime's right, close enough for the younger knight to sense the older man's indecision in the taut lines of his posture. The realm's finest sword had never looked so uncertain. Yet honor, like wildfire, burned hottest under pressure, and Jaime knew Selmy's would claim him soon if decision did not. Jaime's own pulse hammered. He could feel the rhythm in his broken shoulder, in the wounded city, in the very stones. Each throb seemed to chant a single word: now, now, now. But the moment stretched, and he let it, tasting every thread. From the yard far below, new screams floated up, high, thin, children's voices. Somewhere on the eastern curtain, an entire barracks roof must have collapsed, for the screams were followed by a roar of flames so loud the glassless windows breathed outward. Sooty wind whipped Jaime's cloak, bearing the lion upon his golden breastplate to the king's gaze. Aerys snarled upon seeing that sigil. "Tywin's spawn," he spat. "Come to finish your father's treason?" Jaime answered, voice calm though smoke had scraped it raw. "I come to end the city's suffering. You come to steal my throne." Aerys's eyes flicked behind Jaime to Selmy. "Barristan, strike him down." A beat. Barristan did not move. And in that beat, King's Landing changed again. The Dragon Pit, 3 hills distant beyond the Sept, detonated. No blast Jaime had yet felt rivaled the concussion that followed, an impact like the fist of an angry god slamming the earth. A sheet of green fire fountained half a league high, shimmering against the nascent dawn. The detonation's hammer knocked men from their feet on Aegon's high hill, burst open every window left intact in the Red Keep, and ripped tiles from roofs as far as the Street of Sisters. Within the throne room, the shockwave bowed beams and flexed stone, as though the pillars were reeds beside a torrent. Jaime sprawled forward, planting his good hand in broken glass to stay upright. Barristan was hurled back into a fallen tapestry, vanishing in its folds. The king was flung hard against the spikes of his throne, so hard that one long blade drove through the padded cloak into the meat of his thigh. Aerys screamed, not in terror this time but in outrage. The sound jarred Jaime back to motion. Across the floor, a fissure opened where black marble slabs met, and green flames spurted up as if springing from the bowels of the earth. It slithered across the flagstones toward the dazed pyromancers still alive, gifting them the embrace of the substance they worshipped. One man's robe caught, his prayer became a howl. Jaime rose, sword steady once more. What oaths chained him were half melted by heat and horror. He advanced. Aerys, pinned against the throne, pawed for purchase. One blood-slick hand found the hilt of a short sword, wedged among the welded blades, an ornamental thing crusted in centuries of rust. Nonetheless, he wrenched it free, brittle edges screaming. He brandished it like a scythe made of rock. "Keep back." Jaime did not. Below, in Maegor's holdfast, Queen Rhaella and her ladies had reached the base of a spiral stair, leading down into the ancient belly of the fortress. The cool depths promised refuge from the inferno, yet the stairwell exhaled black smoke. Some chamber below had caught. Ash swirled upward like snow in hell. Rhaella staggered, pressing lace to her mouth. Her lungs rattled, each breath half moan, half cough. Every convulsion bruised the child within. Myriad noises converged here, timbers cracking, guards shouting in tongues too hoarse to parse, distant bells screeching discord. The queen's maid, Sarala of Lys, clutched her mistress's elbow, urging sideways to the royal sept. But another of the entourage, a silent girl called Lana, pulled Rhaella toward the outer courtyard instead, insisting the sea air might yet be clean. They argued in broken whispers while ceiling beams groaned overhead. When at last Rhaella forced her eyes open, she saw Sir Willem Darry limping toward them with a cloak wrapped about a sleepy boy, Prince Viserys, who whimpered, "Too hot," in Valyrian. Willem's face bled from an unseen cut. His gray steel helm hung in one hand, yet his remaining strength lay cradled against his breast in the form of the dragon child. "If we reach the river," Darry rasped, "a skiff may still be." His words drowned in a booming cascade. The roof of the long gallery outside surrendered to fire, collapsing in a sheet of sparks. Fragments of colored tile sprayed across the flagstones where the small party cowered. Each shard hissed as if alive. Rhaella let out a sob when one ember lodged against her slipper, burning neat through the silk, blistering flesh. Willem set Viserys down and beat at the queen's slipper with his mailed gauntlet. Sparks dancing. Viserys began to cry in earnest. That wail threaded the smoke-choked corridors like a beacon, winding its way, by chance or fate, into the ears of Varys the Spider. He had been guiding a bruised scribe toward a rusted sally door when the cry found him. Varys pressed a palm to the stone, feeling it pulse with heat, and closed his eyes. Plump lips moved around silent arithmetic. The safe door ahead was blocked. The next nearest exit lay 2 levels below, but the route skirted old stores of lamp oil. Still, the queen. The spider changed direction. Back in the throne room, Barristan Selmy wrenched himself free of the tapestry's weighted folds. His left arm hung numb where it had been struck by falling debris, yet his right still clutched his sword. He found his feet in time to see Jaime, cloak smoldering at the hem, mount the first steps toward the Iron Throne. Jaime ascended slowly, boots slipping where the king's blood had spattered. Aerys flailed his rusted sword, but the tremor of his wounded leg sent fresh pain searing. He slashed, and Jaime parried with lazy contempt, sparks gilding the air. The clang resounded through the grand hall, swallowed at once by strange acoustics. Most of the vaulted ceiling now gaped open to the dawn, which bled faint rose gold across the pall of soot. "Do not," Barristan whispered, taking an involuntary step, though he knew the plea was dust on the wind. Jaime, golden, resolute, was no longer listening. The second clash rang louder than the first. Jaime's longer reach turned Aerys's every frantic cut aside, each parry edging closer until their blades locked at the king's shoulder. In that moment, Jaime could have shoved, could have run Aerys through, but instead he seized the monarch's wrist and wrenched downward. The rusted blade clanged free, ringing down the steps. Aerys shrieked and sank deeper onto the throne's spikes, blood slicking steel anew. Jaime released the wrist, lifted his own sword two-handed. For an instant, Barristan thought he saw hesitation, the flicker of the boy Jaime had been. But the roar of the dragon pit collapsing carried through the ragged ceiling, and with it came the crumbling of whatever mercy the lad might have nursed. Steel flashed. The sword's point entered just beneath Aerys's breastbone, angles perfect as a maester's diagram. Jaime drove the full length in, feeling it grind through ribs. catapulting the king forward off the jagged throne blades, even as he impaled him. Aerys's eyes bulged. His scream died in liquid gurgle. Emerald glare from outside glazed his pupils, turning them the color of wildfire at dawn. Time slowed, or seemed to. Jaime felt the king's final breath fan his cheek, smelled the sour stink of old wine on it. Then he ripped the blade free. Blood sheeted down the monarch's robes, splattering the fused swords below. Aerys sagged sideways, legs tangled in cracked bronze, one hand clawing futilely at air that no longer belonged to him. The Mad King leaned, fell, and at last slid off the throne entirely, landing against the steps Jaime had climbed, crown tumbling after, rolling to a stop at Barristan Selmy's feet. Silence. It endured 10 heartbeats, 15. Then Barristan lifted his eyes from the crown to Jaime. The Kingsguard's white cloak stirred in the unnatural breeze spiraling through the hall. The senior knight's jaw clenched. "You have slain your king." Jaime's voice came rough as gravel. "I have saved the realm." Below, unseen cracks traveled like living fractures throughout the Red Keep. One reached the cellars that held casks of Dornish red. Oak burst apart, wine sluicing down corridors to mingle with pools of wildfire. The combination hissed like a kettle left unattended, sweet vapor adding new perfume to the breath of death. Deep under Maegor's holdfast, Princess Elia heard one such hiss and thought it the sigh of some great beast. Rhaenys whimpered in her arms. The tiny girl's cheeks were streaked black with grime. Her nightgown reeked of smoke. Aegon coughed. A wet sound. The straw at their feet had grown warm. The Dornish princess pressed her children closer, murmuring a lullaby of sunspear beaches and orange blossoms. But her own voice cracked. She had believed Rhaegar would return in splendor, banner glittering, to sweep his family from humiliation. Instead came green fire and tremors like dragon wings beating against the world. Yet as despair tightened its coil, footsteps rang beyond the bars. A key scraped. The door swung in, showing a small man wrapped in linen, bald head glistening with sweat. He bowed low, voice breathy. "Princess. Time grows cruelly short, we must flee." Elia's eyes narrowed with mistrust. "Varys the Spider, does my prince trust you?" "Prince Rhaegar trusts the realm, princess. And the realm needs its heirs. Please." "Ben shall." She hesitated a single breath, then thrust Aegon into his arms, gathered Rhaenys, and followed the eunuch into corridors lit by smoking torches. Above them, in the Queen's Passage, Varys' counterpart found Queen Rhaella at last. The route he chose for her wove through half-collapsed servants' tunnels, ducking fallen beams and patches, where stone floor had liquefied into glowing slag. Twice they backtracked when flame filled a stairwell. Once they passed 3 guardsmen whose eyes had melted in their skulls yet who somehow still groped along the wall before collapsing. It took 30 agonized minutes to cover a distance one could walk in 30 heartbeats on a fair day. When they emerged beneath the rear barbican, dawn's light had strengthened to pale blue, but haze clothed it like funeral gauze. The city below remained a caldera. From the black water rose curtains of steam where river met wildfire. Ships at anchor drifted as blackened hulks or burned as floating pyres. Across the distant walls, Lannister banners had begun to appear, scarlet splotches stark against the smoke. A near gatehouse lay half-collapsed, but rubble allowed the small group to clamber down onto a narrow rampart path. Derry carried visorays. Rhaella leaned upon Sarala, their breaths plumed in the sooty dawn like wraiths fleeing the body. As they struggled along, Tywin Lannister himself rode beneath the gate of the gods below. The gates, warped and glowing, had offered paltry resistance after the internal blasts weakened their hinges. His engineers had intended rams, but the city kindly opened her jaws without persuasion. Yet no music of victory greeted the lions, only a charnel stench that made veteran soldiers gag behind mailed fists. Tywin surveyed devastation with the detachment of a ledger keeper adding columns. Fires raged uncontrolled, but most of the tallest green plumes were dying now, starved of casks to fuel them. In their place, spread carpets of ordinary orange flame devouring what tinder remained. As the line of Lannister spears advanced, ash fell like gray snow upon crimson cloaks. Some men fancied they heard faint chimes, but it was only cracked roof tiles tumbling through half-standing bell towers. "Secure every well," Tywin commanded Sir Kevin. "Organize bucket lines and see the flames contained. Then post guards. Looters will swarm like flies." Kevin glanced toward the Red Keep, its silhouette warped by heat haze. "And the king?" Tywin's green-gold gaze lingered on the sundered towers. "We shall see." His vanguard pressed on through Flea-Bottom's remains. They found corpses frozen in contorted tableaux. A butcher clutching a cleaver to shield his child. 2 lovers fused together by slag timber. A septon kneeling, eyes blistered blind. Knights hardened on countless battlefields found their stomachs rebelling. Yet they advanced, for command was law, and behind them marched more men, and behind those, wagons stacked with tools for both salvage and siege. Back on Aegon's high hill, Sir Barristan knelt beside the body of his king. Smoke curled from a split in the monarch's robes. The crown at Barristan's knee looked dull now, tarnish laid bare in full light. His gloved fingers hovered over it, unsure whether to lift or leave the bauble to cool. Jaime wiped his blade on the tattered cloak of the pyromancer, then sheathed it with the finality of a tomb door shutting. He gazed down at Eris a long time. Only when Barristan finally gathered the crown, holding it like a thorn flower, did Jaime look away. "You should place it on Prince Rhaegar's head," he said. "If Rhaegar yet lives." Barristan searched the younger man's face. "And if he does not, then perhaps the realm will decide." A distant horn blew. They turned toward the open transept windows as armored shapes appeared on the upper courtyard. Lannister men. With them came Sir Meryn Trant, cloak torn, half his beard singed away, leading the battered remnants of the gold cloaks who had survived the waterfront blasts. Somehow, in the chaos, the Red Keep had not yet learned of its monarch's death, but the news would spread swift as green fire once tongues found voice. Jaime tasted the shape of that title on the wind, Kingslayer, and felt its weight settle upon his shoulders heavier than the sword at his hip. Yet the wind carried another voice too, thin, pure, impossibly calm amid crackling fires. Sept bells. No, a child's song, drifting up the stairwell. Jaime half-turned, confused. Barristan sheathed the crown in the crook of his arm, brow knit. The song swelled. Under leaf, under snow, seeds of summer waiting grow. High sweet, a tune for nursery. Then footfalls, shuffling, quick. Into the throne room stumbled Varys, guiding Princess Elia, who clasped baby Aegon while Rhaenys clung to her skirts. Behind them hurried 2 unsmiling guards of the household, men Varys had bribed or entranced, and beyond those came half a dozen other survivors. A stable boy missing half an ear, a sandaled septa with robes singed to her knees, a maester's apprentice carrying scrolls so charred their ribbons smoked. The survivors halted when they beheld the corpse upon the steps, and the cloak-wooed white knights beside it. Elia's eyes widened, dark as desert midnight. "He is dead," Barristan said, voice formally soft. "Sir Jaime slew him." Varys dipped into his profound bow. "Then the city may yet outlive dawn." The eunuch's words drew Jaime's look. For a heartbeat, he saw no spymaster, but a plump shadow within greater shadow. A shape neither wholly man nor specter, left by the fire to judge the living. It chilled him more than the winter wind that might howl months from now through these cracked walls. Elia regained composure first. She approached the fallen king gingerly, one foot skirting a puddle that still sizzled with stray wildfire. Eris had once promised her Dornish roses for her wedding day. Now he resembled nothing so much as a wilted flower himself, petals hammered iron. She regarded him, then raised her gaze to Jaime. "And what of my husband?" No answer existed yet. In the silence that followed, another rumble shook the keep. Slighter this time, the dying cough of a dragon whose lungs held but the final gasp. Dust sifted from the beams overhead. Jaime turned to Barristan. "Find the prince if you can. Escort the queen and children if you must." "I would see them safe," the older knight agreed. Jaime started down the steps, but Varys interposed his bulk. "And where will you go, Sir Jaime? The Lord of Casterly Rock approaches, and by some accounts, a rift yawns wider than any canyon between father and son. Jaime looked past him to the shattered window. From here, he could just glimpse the lion banners climbing the switchback road. My father needs to know the truth before rumors carry it to his tent. And what of truth for the rest of Westeros? That will depend on who shouts loudest. The eunuch's painted lips curled in a melancholy smile. Then let us pray the heralds choose their words kindly, for your sake, and for the realm's. The river gate, at the foot of the keep, had become a bottleneck of charred timbers and mangled corpses. Yet Rhaella's small party reached it ahead of the surge of fleeing servants. A memory of a ramp once descended there to a small stone dock. No ramp remained, only broken planks jutting like rotten teeth. Below, the black water churned with pockets of flame. Sir Willem Darry. Miraculously, a dinghy bobbed not 10 yards off, mostly intact, save scorched mast. He tied a scrap of cloak to his spear haft, stabbed it into the debris, and hailed the craft. 2 oarsmen in burned leather jerked at the movement, then rowed closer when they saw the royal colors. Viserys reached for water with trembling fingers. Rhaella held him back. Each wave lapped the stone with the kiss of boiling broth. The queen feared what poisons rode that murk now. Yet it was the river or the flames. Darry helped Rhaella descend first. A plank gave way. Serala shrieked, but Sir Willem caught queen and plank alike, lowering her into the dinghy. The Lysy girl handed Viserys down. The boy protested until his mother's arms closed him. Next went Serala herself, then Lanadot. Finally, Darry swung one leg over. An arrow whipped past, clacking off the dinghy's prow. On the landing above, 3 gold cloaks staggered forward, armor blackened. One knocked again. Darry shoved off. Oars bit scalding water. Another arrow buzzed overhead. The oarsmen rowed like men possessed, striving for mid-current where tides moved faster and only small fires dotted the surface. Rhaella held Viserys close. Steam kissed their faces. Cries from the city dimmed, replaced by the hiss of water upon wildfire. An eternal argument between 2 hungers. Somewhere downstream, a Myrish cog lay at anchor. Sails furled yet hull unscathed. Darry pointed the oarsmen toward it. If they could board, if the ship still had crew, perhaps the queen might yet see Dragonstone, or even the free cities, before word of her husband's death chained her to a new court's whims. She whispered to her child, promising dragons yet unborn, skies unburned, tomorrows unstrangled by green flame. When Tywin reached the base of Aegon's high hill, the air reeked of boiling fat and scorched pine. He dismounted, leaving the stallion with a groom already half blind from smoke, and took his crimson mantle from Kevin. His boots crunched through glass shards coating the broad stairs. Lannister halberdiers preceded him, helms draped in wet cloth to ward heat. Halfway up, Tywin paused. Beyond the courtyard he saw the White Sword Tower in ruin. Further, the outer library wing had collapsed entirely. Stone dust powdered the yard like freshly fallen snow. The King's Guard stable still burned. But the massive doors of the throne room stood ajar, hinges warped outward by earlier concussions. Tywin resumed climb. Each step he took felt like turning a page in a book whose ending he already suspected but needed verify. Inside, Jaime awaited. He had taken position halfway down the hall beneath the shattered remnants of a banner depicting the 3-headed dragon. His white cloak smoldered at the edges. His gilded armor was streaked black. Yet he stood straighter than Tywin had seen since the boys' first tourney. Their gazes met across the ruin. Behind Jaime, Barristan tended to the royal children. Elia sat on the floor, rocking Aegon. Rhaenys curled against her side. Varys oversaw, silent. 2 more Kingsguard, Darry and Went, entered from a side passage, dazed but unhurt. Their eyes widened at sight of Tywin, but they moved to their comrades, whispering. Tywin approached until only paces divided father and son. He noticed then the corpse upon the steps, the shredded cloak, the blood pooled. He needed no herald to name it. "I see you have been busy," Tywin said, voice level as a still lake. Jaime's jaw flexed. Someone had to. Indeed. Tywin's gaze swept the others. And the queen? No longer in the keep. Rhaegar. Absent. Tywin folded hands behind his back. Then the realm is an orphan once more. His tone weighed possibilities. Who now wears the crown? Barristan stepped forward, holding the circlet. Its rubies glinted dully through soot. His beard quivered. Prince Viserys. The dragon line yet stands. An infant boy? And the dragon line's claim grows ever thinner. Tywin regarded the children, then the hall, then the charred horizon beyond the windows. War will not wait on nappies. Varys' polite cough broke the tableau. Nor will famine, my lord. The granaries on Rhaenys' hill burned with the first blasts. What stores remain lie beneath your men's boots or behind walls Robert Baratheon now marches upon. Peace, however fragile, might still be hammered if the realm rallies behind a single standard. Tywin's cool eyes glittered. Robert or Viserys? Elia Martell might present another option. Varys tilted his head. The babe in her arms blends dragon and Dornish sun. A banner half red, half gold. Will bleed itself upon first breeze, Tywin finished. Dorne cannot carry Westeros. Jaime spoke then, unexpected steel beneath his quiet. The realm will not follow another Targaryen so readily after tonight. Nor will it brook a butcher who would make ash of innocence. Silence. It was as if the city inhaled to hear father answer son. Tywin inclined his head. Perhaps then, Robert Baratheon is inevitable. A stir among the Kingsguard. Barristan opened his mouth to object, but Tywin's lifted finger silenced him. Sir Barristan. Sir Darry. Sir Went, your oaths bind you to the blood of Aegon the Conqueror. Yet your first oath is to the realm. We stand amidst ruin visited upon it by the very dynasty you shelter. Consider well where loyalty ends and justice begins. It was a subtle challenge, offered not with threat, but with cool mathematics. Barristan's lips pressed white. Darry looked away. Went closed his eyes as though savoring a last memory. Jaime watched them, understanding. Vows were weights. Tonight weights had cracked stone. Through a jagged hole in the roof, the sun finally surmounted the haze. Its first clean ray speared the iron throne, gilding rivets, turning each blade's edge into molten gold. In that moment, everything in the hall seemed forged anew. Men, choices, crowns. Tywin's eyes found the throne, then Jaime's face once more. The realm will ask how Aerys died. The realm may ask whatever it likes, Jaime said. He burned his city. He died by the sword. Which of those shames shall we hide? Shame is a coin. Spend it wisely, or it buys only scorn. Tywin's reply was almost gentle. Come. We have an hour's light before chaos regathers. You will brief me on every cache that still burns, every weakness in the walls, every soul we might yet save. And the crown? Jaime asked. Tywin glanced back to Barristan's gauntleted hand. The crown is but metal. Let the lords of the realm decide upon its bearer once the fires die. For now, life outranks metal. A murmur rippled. Agreement, relief, or both. Jaime exhaled. The air entering his lungs tasted of blood, smoke, and possibilities. He strode to his father's side, pain forgotten. Together they faced the broken hall. Their shadows sprawled upon the stones, long and dark, yet the light behind them grew steadier. Outside, bucket brigades formed from Lannister, Tyrell, even shattered gold cloaks who could still lift water. They passed charred icons of the Seven, pulled half-burned dogs from wreckage, righted toppled market carts so the contents might feed the hungry. When midday sun broke the last veil of smoke, King's Landing smoldered, but did not die. In a dinghy riding the Blackwater's ebbing tide, Queen Rhaella glimpsed that skyline one last time. Jagged towers, gouts of lingering flame, haze hallowing them like crowns of ruin. By nightfall, she would be at anchor beneath the yawning Myrish Cog's decks, praying for winds toward Dragonstone. And in a high, soot-streaked chamber of the Red Keep, Varys set quill to parchment, writing the first of 1,000 secret letters. Ink dried before his pen quit scratching. The spider's web extended across a realm, cracked, but not yet fallen, ready to catch such flies as power shed. Somewhere far beyond the riverlands, Robert Baratheon marched still, his hammer hungry for dragons. Yet as ravens winged from the scorched rookery of King's Landing, bearing tidings of green fire and a slain king, even the Lord of Storm's end would slow to read, and wonder upon this world reborn in cinder. Night descended again, cool and soft as a mother's hand upon a fevered brow. The fires glowed, but no longer raged. Amid their embers, a city breathed. Above, the moon silvered each puddle of soot and revealed, if only for the hush between two heartbeats, a silhouette upon the Iron Throne, a vacant seat waiting for the weight of new rule, new vows, new sins. In the echoing quiet of early darkness, Sir Jaime Lannister stood alone before that throne. He reached out, touched one twisted blade. It cut his fingertip, as legend promised. A bead of blood welled, scarlet ruby in moonlight. He studied it, then flicked it away. A spark leapt from the brazier behind him when it landed. For an instant, he thought it wildfire, but it vanished harmlessly. Not all sparks start blazes. Some merely remind a man that flame lives. Jaime turned, cloak trailing, footsteps echoing in the hollow keep. He descended toward duties waiting in scorched courtyards, leaving the Iron Throne empty in moon glow. A chair of nightmares, forged for dragons, abandoned by madness, awaiting whatever new dreamer dared claim its barbs. Ash lay across Aegon's high hill like a second snowfall, gray drifts piling in the hollows where once bright flowers had nodded in the sea breeze. Through that hush moved Sir Barristan Selmy, cloak rent, helm in the crook of one elbow, the king's crown heavy in his gauntleted hand. Dawn had come and gone and come again while he labored, yet he felt no fatigue, only the stunned alertness a man knows when his soul has been slapped awake. He crossed the outer ward without escort. The Lannister sentries posted there lowered halberds in salute, but their eyes tracked the band of white on his shoulders more than the naked steel at his hip. Beyond the toppled arch of the east curtain wall, a makeshift infirmary sprawled beneath torn palisades of canvas that had been tents when the siege lines formed, but now served as airy sick halls. Barristan smelled charred meat, vinegar, and the copper tang of blood before he heard the cries. Orderly rows of wounded had given up pretense hours ago. Cots overflowed onto trampled earth, leaving surgeons to kneel where they worked. Razors and bone saws washed in buckets overfull with pink water. A dozen acolytes of the faith passed among the rows, murmuring the Mother's Prayer, sprinkling rosemary on glazed eyes when the body beneath ceased trembling. He paused just within the flap, blinking as smoke stung again. A knight of the Reach lay to his right, breastplate peeled open like an apple skin, so that ribs gaped above lungs that still fluttered shallowly. The man's tabard bore the silver chalice of House Fossaway of New Barrel. His hair, what remained, was scorched the color of rust. Yet when he spied Barristan, he tried to rise. "Sir," he rasped, voice no stronger than a feather's brush. "How fares the king?" Barristan knelt, smoothing the edge of the knight's blanket. "The realm has no king at present." The wounded man's brow creased, confusion drowning pain for an instant. Barristan took his gauntlet off, set the crown beside his knee, and with bare fingers closed the outer's lids. The lungs stilled at last. He rose to find Maester Pycelle hunched over a table made from a broken door. The old man's beard was singed black at the tips, but his chain of gilded links glimmered unharmed. Perhaps the sole link in all the city yet whole. He looked up, eyes watering. "Sir Barristan," he croaked, blinking through grime. "Is it true? Have ion smoke and rumor lied, or—" "Have we lost Eris?" Barristan set the crown upon the stained plank between them. "Your grace is dead." Pycelle's fingers fluttered to touch a bent link at his collar. "And Prince Rhaegar?" "Not yet returned. Word is Robert Baratheon broke his host upon the Trident a fortnight past. Whether prince or corpse, rides toward us now. No raven knows. Ben? The maester bent low, beard brushing the crown's dull rubies. His shoulders trembled beneath the weight of knowledge at last confirmed. Barristan watched the tremor, felt it echo in his own marrow. Twice in a life, a man might witness the sun extinguished. Thrice was a cruelty no god should allow. Who leads the city? Pycelle whispered. Lord Tywin commands the walls. Sir Jaime the keep. The small folk cling to any banner not wreathed in green flame. Barristan exhaled. The realm needs law before lawlessness chooses itself. Pycelle straightened slowly. The line of Aegon still beats within the womb of Queen Rhaella, and within the babe Viserys. The queen fled by river hours ere last light. Barristan's gaze traced the infirmary. And the boy by now may share that flight. Or he may lie hidden Varys knows where. We guard a crown no head remains to wear. Pycelle's eyes found the iron seat of the crown, the dents where Aerys had hammered new gems over years of paranoia. Then the lords will gather, he murmured. They will weigh oaths against opportunities, as lords ever do. And some poor child will wake one dawn to find a realm bound to him by nothing but sharpened quills and fear. Barristan made no answer. He slipped the crown back under his arm and left the stench of rot behind. His heart beat not for politics, but for something simpler. Stillness, perhaps, or an hour to weep unseen for the realm he had sworn to guard. But stillness was a luxury King's Landing no longer afforded. Each corner of the ruin scribbled demands upon his blade. At the stable yard he found Sir Arthur Dayne's silver-inlaid saddle, upended in mud, its starburst sigil half-scrubbed by hoofprints. Arthur lay miles north now, ash beneath trampled reeds along the Green Fork. Honor shining in remembered noon sunlight. Barristan rested a hand upon the leather one moment, then turned toward the Godswood. He needed answer from Weirwood and Seven together, if any answer might come. He did not see Jaime again until dusk. Atop the shattered drum tower, overlooking King's Gate, Jaime Lannister drank raw rainwater from a buckled helm while smoke ghosts stormed the sunset sky. The view stretched unbroken from the field of ashes, where once the dragon pit had crowned Raineysill, to the ribbon of the Blackwater, its current still hiccuping green whenever a submerged cask burst below. Columns of Lannister soldiers ant-marched about the ash heaps, digging trenches to halt creeping fires or piling corpses for priestly rites. Somewhere below, a lone bard tested a harp gone half-mute in heat. The plaintive notes wandered upward, frail as spider silk. A ladder clattered. Tywin emerged with two men. Kevan beside, a squire behind bearing a folded banner. Jaime wiped his mouth and saluted with sardonic precision. "How fares our patient?" Tywin asked, surveying the horizon as if it were a ledger. Jaime snorted. "The city or its healer. Both bleed yet. But the worst flames are banked. Steel and fear douse wildfire faster than water," Tywin observed. "And steel and fear we own in equal plenty." Kevan coughed. "Tarly's van arrived with 700 reach levies. He offers them to hold the granary district." Jaime raised a brow. "Tarly delivers men to Lannister banners." "Wonders never cease." "Randall Tarly delivers himself," Tywin corrected. "Men follow." They watched labor gangs haul timbers from a collapsed sept to shore a wall crack that stretched in jagged smile halfway down the hill. The work moved smoothly. Axes struck on a rhythm. Wagons creaked. Shouted orders snapped crisp as whips. Lannister discipline spread across new subjects like oil. "Tomorrow we convene the lords remaining inside the city," Tywin said at length. "Pycelle, Bronze Jan Royce, Tarly, Grandison, even Hoster Tully's nephew who commands a Riverland sortie, trapped here when the docks blew. We will declare an interim council. No king, merely guardianship of the realm until the claimant emerges. Robert Baratheon will object to guardians chosen by lions," Jaime said. Tywin's eyes cut to him. "Robert Baratheon will object to anything outside his tankard. When he arrives, he will find order where he expected chaos. Offer him the throne, and he will believe we gift it out of respect rather than necessity." "Da. You intend to crown him. I intend the realm to breathe. If that breath comes through a boar-brained stag, so be it. The Lannisters will hold the lungs. Jaime tossed the helm water into space. Droplets fell like quicksilver. And if Viserys returns with dragon wings, then a council will weigh blood against burn scars and choose the lesser furnace. A rare ghost of a smile haunted Tywin's lips. The lesser furnace, Jaime, not the colder hearth. I have no illusions, we are beloved. None. Kevin signaled the squire, who unfurled the folded banner. The red lion of the rock on cloth of black. Tywin nodded. The boy climbed to lash it upon the highest jag of broken stone where the king's sigil had flown hours ago. As fabric snapped out, dusk breeze caught it, and lion shadow fell across Jaime's boots. Tywin dismissed the attendants, remaining alone with his heir. The silence between them tasted of soot. You burnt your cloak this morning, Tywin said. The seamstress mended it ill. It was white when I took vows, Jaime replied. It will never be white again. There are other colors. Jaime stared. Would you have me shed the Kingsguard? The Kingsguard as you swore to it is dead. You slew it when you slew your king. Choices remain. Jaime wiped soot from his gorget. If I remove white, the realm will rightly see ambition in the place I stand. They will whisper I drew sword for father's crown. Let fools whisper. Truth rides the strongest horse. Tywin's voice carried into dark. I would have you ride that horse, golden and unashamed. Jaime answered with a brittle laugh. And leave Cersei chained to a marriage bed in Casterly Rock, waiting for raven that never comes? No, father. I wrestled honor once today. I shan't arm wrestle it blindfolded tomorrow. Tywin's gaze cooled to winter. Honor? You speak of honor the hour you brand yourself Kingslayer? A muscle leapt in Jaime's jaw. Aerys damned himself. I merely closed the gate behind him. Silence again. Only the lion banner crackled overhead. At length, Tywin placed a leather-clad hand upon his son's shoulder. In days to come men will call you monster. Wear the name as armor, and none may harm you. Remember, infamy and fame share a single cradle. Bam? Jaime met his father's stare squarely. A cradle built of lies. Lies write history. Only sons remember truths. Tywin squeezed once, then descended the ladder, cloak furling behind like wings of some dark angel. Jaime watched him vanish. In the growing night, the city lights winked out one by one, till death seemed to creep back into her bones. He felt a pull behind his sternum, an ache deeper than broken vows, heavier than Lannister gold. He thought of Cersei across the riverlands, of the startled fury in her green eyes when she learned what title the realm had already pinned upon him. Kingslayer. They would spit it in song, carve it on privy walls, whisper it in silk-draped bedchambers. He closed his eyes and let the wind strike his face until memory scattered like embers. On the Mirish cog, bright phoenix, Queen Rhaella Targaryen drifted in and out of fever dreams. The ship's medicus, a leathery volantine with 6 gold rings in his ears, bawled her twice, fed her syrups of mandrake and honey, and wrapped her blistered foot in soft linen. Yet still she shivered in midday sun, while little Viserys clung to her gown and stared wide-eyed at the great sail, tattooed with a black phoenix on Copperfield. Sir Willem Darry kept constant watch. Twice corsairs circled, hoping a fleeing vessel ripe for boarding. But Darry stationed archers at prow and stern, and the drawn bows convinced greed to sail on. Rhaella's ladies remained below, praying that Dragonstow's basalt towers would rise soon upon the horizon, yet the winds dallied. Each dawn they measured distance by charred flotsam drifting seaward, burned barges, barrel staves, once, gods preserve them, a blackened infant cradle, bobbing like a coffin for dolls. On the third evening the queen propped herself against the poop railing, thin and pale, and called for ink. She wrote 6 letters in a spidery hand. To Dorne, to Pycelle, to Stannis Baratheon, at Storm's End, to the Arryn Eyrie, to the Citadel, and one whose only name upon the fold read simply, my brother. She sealed each with red wax impressed by her ring, then ordered a cabin boy to climb and release them with the birdkeeper's ravens. If Dragonstone stood unconquered, she would lay her head there. If not, the free cities would know the last dragon yet drew breath. She watched the ravens whirl into the purple dusk, feeling every flutter of their wings inside her ribs as though they carried pieces of her heart. After, she took Viserys to the prow and knelt beside him. Gulls hovered, expecting bread. The boy turned skyward, pale hair teased by breeze, and asked, "Mother, when will father breathe fire again?" Rhaella smoothed that silken hair. "When you are old enough to remember dreams, you will see him breathing always." Viserys frowned. "Dreams are not real." "They are," she whispered. "When dragons make them so." The gulls cried. Viserys reached small fingers toward them, as if to snatch song from air. Rhaella's gaze shimmered with tears that would not fall. She tasted salt, not from sea alone. Stormcrow Palace, seat of the Guild of Alchemists, had lost its roof but not its keepers. In the smoky aftermath they crept among emerald rubble like beetles inside the belly of a corpse, murmuring over spilled secrets and shattered flasks. Only 7 pyromancers survived, each scarred, each half-mad with grief at their brethren's glorious immolation. Yet their reverence for fire remained undimmed. Halline of the mismatched eyes, chief among them now, knelt before a broken vault door and whispered a prayer to the jars still intact beyond. 800 remained, enough to ignite half the reach if scattered upon summer dry wheat, enough to free any earth from tyrants or enslave any king to fear. He pressed one ear to chill bronze, listening for hiss of leaking terror. Silence, a gift from the fires. That which did not burn grew stronger. He smiled crookedly and slipped the key under his robes. So long as wildfire lived, dragons lived. And dragons, he knew, always sought riders. At the Trident's fords, a storm cloud of dust heralded Robert Baratheon's returning host. His standard, a crowned stag against gold, snapped above a column thinned by 9 pitched battles and 3 weeks of forced marches. Sweat-streaked plate mail, arrows bristled from supply wagons. Yet victory shone upon every helm like sunrise on wine. Robert rode at the head, hammer across hornbow, boiled leather jerkin undone to the navel, exposing a mat of dark hair and scars still pink. His laugh rolled ahead like drumfire. To his right, Eddard Stark sat upon a lank gray courser, quieter, eyes ever roving the horizon for messenger. Northbound ravens carried word that Lyanna yet remained captive. Rumors multiplied with each mile. Ned's knuckles whitened round the sword Longclaw, loaned by Lord Mormont when ice melted at Castle Black, and refugees begged passage south. They camped that night under willow torches banked against chill. Robert drained a wineskin of sour Dornish red and belched approval. Thoros the Red tried to match him flagon for flagon, but slumped snoring after the second. Men told stories of kings landing aflame, of Aerys struck down by his own sworn shield. Some named Jaime, some Barristan, some even the spider-grown fangs. Robert listened, eyes glittering, but said little, only thumbing the hammer's runes as though they itched. At moonrise, Ned found him above the river cliff staring south with expression carved from stone. "I never begged catastrophe upon the city," Robert muttered when Ned drew near. Clouds veiled starlight. His silhouette rose bleak against black water. Only father's head, cousin's head, bastard's head. War forgets what target you paint. It shoots the barn whole. Da. "We march tomorrow," Ned said. "And the day after. And the day after. Until we know truth from rumor." Robert swung the hammer, letting its weight pull his shoulder loose. Tywin plays goat shepherd. Herds chaos till only his bleat commands. He entered the city doors hours after dragons ate it, and called himself savior. Clever wolf-eater that. Ned kicked a pebble over the cliff. The Mad King lit the pyres. None dispute. None. All the same, ask yourself, who whispered behind his throne these past years? Robert's voice thickened. 1 part fury, 2 parts wine. Who but Lord of Lannisters fed the dragon gold, then withdrew the moment scales turned? Ned had pondered the same across many sleepless leagues. Yet answers mattered less than Lyanna's safety. We face what stands before us. Tywin holds the capital. Rhaella may flee to Dragonstone. A child might claim the crown. Justice first, Robert. Vengeance later. Robert barked rueful laughter. Justice? Vengeance. Two dogs share one bone. Stark. I mean to gnaw both. He spat over the edge. Yet I'll not burn babes in the cradle. We ride tomorrow, yes. But our swords stay leashed until gates open. Ned clasped his friend's arm. Swear it. Robert's hand met his, rough as boar hide. By the fury in my blood. They stood in newborn silence, river sighing below. If omens rode the wind, neither warlord nor wolf heard them. Stars broke through tatters of cloud, blinking old light on new ruin. Varys found Jaime near midnight within the rookery tower, feeding the last uninjured raven crumbs of burnt biscuit. The spider's slippers made no sound on stone. Only when he cleared his throat did the Kingslayer glance around. Couldn't sleep? Jaime asked, stroking jet feathers. Spiders seldom dream. Webs are fragile. We mend by moonrise. Varys eyed the bird. That one still flies? Strong wings. He weathered smoke better than most men. Jaime offered the scrap. The raven snapped it greedily. Your letters outtrace the flames. Pycelle counted 3 replies by sunset. River Run, Old Town, and Sunspear. The eunuch steepled fingers. And Casterly Rock? My father seldom seeks counsel when he may issue command. Jaime's smile held vinegar. But you knew that. I know only whispers. Varys's gaze drifted over the Ravencoat's darkened cages. Some speak of a Kingsmoot. Some of a regency. Many of wars end beneath Robert's crown. Then rumor speaks true. Jaime set the raven on a perch. Call me monster if they must. The dead call me savior. History will call you what winners decide. Varys murmured. Thus, your father binds lords tomorrow, while your conscience patrols ramparts. Jaime shrugged. My conscience is none of father's concern. Ah, but your future is. The eunuch produced a roll of parchment sealed plain. For you, a message smuggled through 4 guards and 1 very confused laundry girl. It bears no seal, yet the hand, exquisite. Jaime hesitated, recognized the swirl of letters. Cersei's. He broke the wax. 8 lines only, words knifed swift across the page. She had passed Maidenpool, she wrote. Rumor said dragons turned to cinders, king with them. She rode day and night, heart and throat, to find truth. Come to her, or bid her meet him where memory sweetened their first sin. The letter breathed urgency and warning. Beware our father's designs. Jaime folded it small as a coin, slipped it under the gorget against his skin. Thank you. Lannister lions roar loud, Varys said with a bow. Yet even roaring cats appreciate a spider's ear. Jaime glanced at him sidelong. And what price for that ear? Only that the realm not crack while great beasts duel. Realm's cracking done for now, I think. Cracks run deep, the eunuch murmured. And some bleed long after flame cools. He melted down the stair, a ribbon of pale silk, swallowed by darkness. Jaime listened to retreating footfalls, then looked to the raven. Its eyes shone obsidian in torchlight, reflecting no flame. For an instant he envied the bird. Wings for horizon, no crown heavy on hollow bones. But envy changed nothing. He doused the torch, leaving the rookery to star-speckled night. Morning opened red as a wound. Lords assembled in the half-intact hall of lamps, whose colored glass had mostly survived, by miracle or design. Crimson sun poured through fractured panes, stabbing mosaic patterns across the marble floor, where benches now stood arrayed in a half-circle. At the hall's head a plain oaken chair sat upon a low dais, Tywin's decree. No throne until a rightful head stood to claim it. Pycelle and the High Septon waited flanking empty seat. Scrolls ready. Guests arrived guardedly. Randall Tarley indented plate, eyes hard as polished horn. Bronjon Royce, cloak patched with fresh soot. Lord Grandison of the Ring. Arms still bandaged. Sir Lyn Corbray lean and pale after smokelung. A scattering of minor riverlords. the thin surviving contingent of city watch captains. Last came Sir Mace Tyrell, beard singed rumby at the tips, representing his father's host still besieging Storm's End. Each man carried behind him a tale of retainers, the hall filling with whispers and the scrape of anxious steel. When the sun-sword banners of Dorne were noted absent, murmurs flared. Elia and the children remained hidden, and Dorne's envoys wisely chose exile or shadow. Tywin entered without heralds, red-leathered doublet immaculate despite grime that smudged every other soul. Jaime shadowed him, white cloak newly washed though the gold lion still rode tarnished greaves. Barristan Selmy followed, the crown cradled in a silk pillow like a hawk hooded for market. His visage revealed no opinion. Tywin stood before the dais. The murmuring died. He began. No transcripts survive verbatim. Those who listened later recounted a speech measured as sword strokes. Tywin catalogued calamity, dragonfire, famine threat, the breach of rule. He named no culprit beyond the Mad King. He praised every house that had aided bucket lines. He noted casualties by number, not by rank, placing small folk atop the ledger where 7,000 dead dwarfed 200 knights. He spoke of winter shipping, of fields far from scorched that must feed the capital, of docks to be cleared before rot fouled the river. And when he finished enumerating wounds, he proposed stitches, an interim council of 5, each seat held by a house, chosen for grain, ships, men, coin and law. Grain fell to the Reach, Randyll Tarley consenting with curt nod. Ships to the Arbor. Lord Paxter Redwine absent yet accounted by messenger. Men to the Vale, Bronze Yon accepting on Lord John Arryn's behalf, though wary. Coin to Casterly Rock, Tywin's own, though none dared dispute wealth glittering in every ring on his fingers. Law to Storm's End, if Robert Baratheon would take it. That last stunned the hall. Yet Tywin pressed. Let Robert be champion of the peace until rightful crown selected. Let no lord raise banners until the stag answered. No vote occurred. Nods passed like rumor. Only Sir Mace Tyrell protested that Storm's End yet resisted siege, that Stannis Baratheon held castle and might contest his brother's claim. Tywin yielded the point calmly. Then Stannis might bring law should Robert refuse. So the wheel kept turning. When the hall broke for parchment drafting, Jaime joined Barristan by a talon-shaped window. "You approve?" Barristan asked, voice low. "I mistrust," Jaime said. "But I approve more than smoke. The 7 know we danced enough fires." Barristan's eyes followed Royce across the mosaic floor. Yet steel rarely sleeps long in such gatherings. "Nor conscience," Jaime replied. "Your conscience? I lent it my sword once. It bleeds slower now." Barristan's mouth tightened, but he inclined his head. Even a bleeding conscience still beats. A runner burst into the hall then, dirty, breathless, shouting for Lord Tarley. All turned as the man fell to a knee and held aloft a sealed scroll. Randyll Tarley cracked wax, scanned lines, and looked up. Face gone flint. "Storm's End has fallen," gasps whispered. Mace Tyrell sputtered, demanding details. Tarley spoke over him. Stannis Baratheon had surrendered after months of hunger. Granted safe conduct by Lord Mathis Rowan, once news of Aerys's death reached their siege lines. Stannis rode for King's Landing under flag of truce to confer with his brother. 2 Baratheons now converged. 2 stag antlers aimed at the same crown. Jaime felt the air grow thinner. Tywin's eyes flicked to his son. Unreadable. "Pray they love each other still," Barristan murmured. "Else we bury more widows." Elia Martell spent those same hours beneath the cellars of the gatehouse tower, where Varys secreted her behind a false wall. A single alcove held straw, 1 brazier, and 3 small pallets. The children slept curled together. Elia watched them, hands trembling in her lap, until Varys returned bearing bread, cheese, and a flask that steamed faintly. "Milk of the poppy," he explained, pouring half a thimbleful into her cup. "For pain. My pain matters little beside truth," she answered. Yet drank. The brew eased the ache in her joints left by months of confinement. She dabbed crumbs from Rhaenys' cheek, then faced the eunuch. "You promised safe passage, and you shall have it." Varys knelt, voice soft as cloth. "But maneuver requires patience. Today lords gather blades. Tomorrow they sheathe them to sup. We slip between their courses like thin wine." Elia's lips parted. She considered, nodded. "My brother Oberyn will demand blood if harm befalls us. One more reason to keep you whole." She met his eyes, Dornish suns cooled by long night, and said, "You play many sides, Lord Whisperer. Where lies your heart? Where beats the realms?" He murmured, and turned away before she could decide if the words were oath or jest. Evening painted the sky bruised plum when Robert reached the plains north of the Dragon Gate. Scouts bore word that Lannister sentries held the walls, yet allowed small parties of healers to pass. Robert ordered camp raised and pennants planted. The crowned stag, the flayed man of Dreadfort trailed by few survivors, the pale white hart of Mallister, the roaring bear of Marmont, and newly unfurled, the direwolf of Winterfell, black upon gray. He refused pavilion, instead staking his banner before a cook fire and sitting cross-legged while pages roasted hare. When a Lannister envoy arrived, Sir Adam Marbrand, his helm plumed red gold, Robert rose, wiping grease from beard, and listened to the invitation. Lord Tywin requested audience at sunrise within the Ash Hall. Safe conduct sworn on the seven. Robert grunted. "Tell your Lord Father sunrise suits a man who thirsts." "And the hammer?" Marbrand's gaze darted to the weapon leaning against Robert's knee. "Thirsts for victory, not blood." Robert finished, hefting the hammer. "Steel stays with me." Marbrand bowed, turned, and rode. Ned exhaled beside Robert. "You trust him?" Ned asked. "I trust no lion, but I trust sunrise." Robert's grin flashed white. "Mornings make hungover lords honest out of necessity." Stannis rode into camp, past third watch. Gaunt cheeks shadowed. Ned watched brothers embrace in rare tenderness, though Stannis' back stiffened. He spoke first. "I surrendered to save my men. Many men. I shall not surrender my honor next." Robert clapped his shoulder. "Your honor's iron, little brother." Stannis' jaw clenched. "Then wield it wisely." They spoke until cocks crowed. Ned heard only wind, but guessed their counsel. Crowns and debts, thrones and bones. Sunrise bled gold over the ashes of King's Landing. Robert entered the city, astride a great gray charger. Ned and Stannis to left and right. Heralds behind blowing short, mournful notes, as if the horns mourned what they once gloried. The Dragon Gate hung warped. Blackened steel bent outward like petals. On either side, Lannister spears lined the approach, cloaks charcoal, but polished helms catching dawn. Tywin stood atop the inner gatehouse flanked by Jaime and a half-score knights of mixed allegiance. Royce, Tarly, Corbray, even Lord Renfred Ricker, whose lands had burned under Targaryen retaliation a month past. As Robert dismounted, trumpets silenced. Tywin descended alone, his boots clicking upon stone still warm to the touch. When they met, Robert extended an arm sheathed in mail. Tywin grasped forearm to forearm, the gesture less greeting than test of grip. "Welcome, Lord Baratheon," Tywin said. "I regret the city you came to claim lies wounded. Wounds heal." Robert's dark eyes flicked up the hill to the Red Keep. "I mean to cleanse infection." "A worthy aim." Tywin released him. "We have prepared hall and victuals. Your brothers in arms join us." Robert touched hammer haft. "Brothers feast after battle. Have we called battle's end?" "That depends upon whose standard next rises," Tywin answered over his shoulder as he led forward. They passed streets half cleared. Charwomen sweeping glass. Septons chanting over corpse carts. Small folk gawked at Robert's broad shoulders and black beard, whispering. "Stormlord, giant killer, king?" in tones half hope, half dread. No cheer rose yet. Too recently throats had screamed. But some eyes widened when Robert tossed a coin to a child whose head bore a bandage like snowcap. "Hope begins in pennies. Inside the ash hall, once the grand sept of Raineysill, tables awaited, one long, draped in linen, scorched at the edges, 7 smaller set in crescent. The air still smelled faintly of incense burned before icons melted. Tywin motioned Robert to the seat at table's head. The stag paused, studying dais where a melted effigy of the mother slumped, headless. "Leave dais empty," he said. "No man sits above others until crown rests sure." Tywin inclined his head. "As you will." Lords took places. Ned sat flanking Robert, Stannis upon his brother's far side. Jaime settled opposite, across from Ned, gray eyes meeting gray in silent recognition that although they had never crossed swords, war's geometry might yet pivot. Pycelle unscrolled a parchment. The council's articles lay out. Relief of small folk, rebuilding of granaries, construction of new aqueduct, levies for city guard appointed proportionally by houses present. Final clause: election of a guardian chosen by acclamation to steer these tasks, until a king acclaimed or crowned. Randall Tarley rose to speak for acclamation. He nominated Robert. Bronze Yon Royce seconded. A rising murmur like wind preceded others' lending voice. Only Mace Tyrell abstained, cheeks plumb. His father Mace would prefer rose before stag in any garden. Stannis watched, lips pressed thin, but said nothing. Robert stood slowly. "Lords, I thank you. I will guard the realm until rightful heir chosen. But let none call me King of Ashes. Should Viserys Targaryen or his mother present claim, let them meet us in council." Whispers. Jaime leaned forward. "They fled, my lord. Rumors place them east of Dragonstone by now. Then ravens will fly," Robert said. "Either they bend the knee or break upon the storm." Stannis' brows lifted but held silence. Ned had exhaled in relief. Mercy interlaced with Robert's thunder seldom lasted long. Yet here at least a path avoided slaughter of babes. The High Septon prayed, words echoing off charred vault. And so Robert Baratheon became Lord Protector of the realm. Not king yet, but near enough. Jaime felt the room tilt, as though invisible crown balanced above Robert's head, heavy as dwarven anvil. Across the table, Tywin studied Stannis, calculating another axis of power. Barristan's fingers tightened on the silk pillow. The crown within seemed to pulse like a heart against his palm. Evening settled before accords finished. When Robert finally emerged into the citadel courtyard, a hush awaited. 1,000 small folk had gathered, as if noses for rumor guided them. They saw the stag banner carried behind him, the lords arrayed in chorused solidarity, and something in their faces flickered, fear thawing to maybe the first warmth of hope. Robert hefted hammer high, turning slow so all could see. Voice deep as cathedral bells rang out. "The fire's end, the realm lives." Someone cheered. Another. Voices multiplied. The roar rolled up the hill, bounced off broken domes, rattled sparrow nests in rafters. For one heartbeat, King's Landing forgot Shar and pain, remembered only dawn. Jaime stood in the archway watching. The cheer washed past him like tide around a stone. In its hush after, a raven flapped down to perch upon a broken balustrade. Perhaps the very bird he had fed. It cocked its head, cawed once, and flew on. He wondered then if birds ever dreamed of crowns. That night, Cersei arrived. She rode exhausted palfrey through Mudgate, long after curfew, hair wild, gown tattered at hem. Gold cloaks barred the lane until she tore away hood and named herself. Candlelight painted her cheeks in gaunt hollows, eyes fever bright. She reached the Red Keep breathless to find corridors changed. Banners burned, guards wearing half-mended cloaks of houses she scarce knew. She brushed past them until she burst into the small council solar, where Jaime stood pouring wine for Barristan and Stannis. They saw each other. Everything else blurred. She crossed the distance in heartbeats. His arms closed. Neither spoke. Barristan turned away discreetly. Stannis' mouth twisted in faint disapproval. At length Jaime pulled back, fingers cupping her jaw. "I feared fire took you, and I feared vows did." She brushed soot from his breastplate. "Kingslayer." The word broke on her tongue between love and contempt. He kissed her brow. Not proud, yet not ashamed. You will be both soon. Father means to wed me to Robert. Ice water through veins. Jaime stared. How know you? He told me at the rock before I fled. A lioness to calm the stag while lions rule beside. Her lip curled. I would sooner bed the stranger. Jaime grabbed decanter, poured 2 measures, downed 1. He'll not have you. Oh, he will. Cersei hissed. He craves a Targaryen bride no more, and I can birth heirs. He will take the match gladly. Jaime's mind spun. Tywin's plan fell into sharp relief. Gift Robert the throne, gift him a Lannister queen, bind crown to gold forever. Stannis cleared throat. Your reunion warms, yet business remains. Lord Protector summons summit at dawn. Reach fleets, northern grain, Dornish envoys. His cold gaze lingered upon their closeness, unjudging but vigilant. Cersei smoothed rage behind mask of courtesy. Lord Stannis. Jaime swallowed. We will attend. After Stannis departed, Cersei whispered, we must stop it. No. Now or after our father forges chains. He set glass aside. Let dawn come. Fires still smolder. Even lions cannot forge while embers blind. Her shoulders slumped. For first time he saw tremor. Fear raw-dod you. He led her to a couch near window cracked by explosion. Night's air cooled the chamber, carrying faint notes of burning pine. Cersei rested head upon his shoulder. They spoke in whispers of childhood, of Joffrey imagined, of dark water where fish flick silver. Sleep took them before words ended. Somewhere beyond, Tywin wrote missives sealing dowries, tallies of coin, prenuptial scrolls. Somewhere beyond that, Varys set candle to map pins, charting spider threads from Dragonstone to Dorne. And on a deck riding gentle swells, Rhaella Targaryen woke from dream of red door, and heard herself groan in labor. Dragons. She prayed, let them be born in peace. But peace was fickle as wildfire, gleaming calm upon Cask's rim one breath, devouring realms the next, and in the heart of King's Landing, under a throne still vacant. Spark slept in shadows, waiting for a name to breathe them hot again. Key. The bell in the Lion Gate Tower tolled the first hour before dawn when Queen Rhaella's waters broke. The bright phoenix lay at anchor east of Driftmark, sails brailed, waiting on a tide reluctant to turn. Wind fluttered amid the rigging, but failed to summon more than sullen ripples across the surface, as though the narrow sea itself held its breath. Lightning flashed now and then behind a mantle of low clouds, too distant to rumble but bright enough to paint the ship's deck in quicksilver and carve the queen's shadow across the planks. Sir Willem Darry had posted himself at her cabin door, sword drawn, as though steel could keep death itself at bay. A boy of 15 held a lantern beside him. The flame trembled, casting nervous halos in the breezeway. From inside came the sounds of travail, groans first, then cries that ground from throat to teeth and back again, in a rhythm older than any crown. The Volantine medicus barked orders in thickly accented common, his syllables punctuated by Rhaella's own ragged breathing. He had wanted the midwife from Lys, but Serala still lay senseless from smoke poison in the hold's sickbay. So Lady Lana, hands scrubbed raw with lye, knelt between the queen's knees while hot water steamed in a copper basin that reflected the cabin's lone lantern like a second moon. Viserys crouched in a corner clutching a stuffed dragon sewn of faded purple velvet, his thumb jammed into his mouth. With every contraction, his mother's voice climbed. With every cry the boy winced as if someone peeled skin from his shoulders. The medicus would have sent him away, but Rhaella caught his sleeve and shook her head so fiercely that he relented. Better the child see life born than remember only its taking. She whispered between pains. Another spasm bowed her spine. Lana saw the membrane bulge, then tear, releasing a rush of fluid pink-tinged like dawn. The queen thrashed, knocking clay pots from a low shelf. One shattered, releasing a pungence of myrrh. Sweat streamed down her temples, even as chills shivered her limbs. Somewhere beyond the planking, the sea slapped the hull in long, slow sighs. And Rhaella imagined the mother's face in every wash of sound. Imagined the strangers in every quiet after. "Push, Majesty," Lena crooned, voice shaking yet steady beneath. "Again now. Good. Yes, like that." Rhaella bore down. Stars burst behind her eyelids. First green, then red, then green again. Echo of wildfire that lingered in memory no water would ever quench. When she opened her eyes, she saw her dead daughter Rhaenys poised upon the rafter above. A spectral child clad in smoke, smiling as though to say, "Come, mother. The worst is done." Rhaella's gorge rose. She tasted bile and iron. The medicus pressed gentian-soaked cloth to her lips. "Hold," he warned. "Breathe with me. Long breath, my lady. You bleed already too quickly." She breathed, though each draw felt like shards raked across lung. She reached for visories, and caught only air before the next wave seized her. Lana's calloused fingers guided the crown of a head free. Dark hair, not the pale silver of dragons, but black as wet basalt, glinted under the lantern. For a stunned instant, the midwife thought another curse, another throwback to some Valyrian dalliance generations past. Then the hair shivered and parted. Beneath, the skin gleamed palest pearl, a promise that silver might yet glimmer once washed. Lana wept. She had believed no infant born into such ruin could still be beautiful. "Once more," she begged. Rhaella screamed, a raw, tearing sound that turned the cabin's timbers to tuning forks. She felt flesh rend further, felt the world tilt, and with a final agonized push, the child spilled into Lana's waiting arms, slippery as a fish yanked from brine. Blood followed, freshets sluicing down the midwife's wrists. The medicus clamped cord, muttering prayers to Roller and the maiden both. For an eternity the baby lay silent, eyes closed, limbs limp. Viserys lowered his thumb. Why won't she cry? Rhaella, half faint, held breath. Then, like a reed flute finding reed and wind, a thin wail lifted. It trembled upward, gathering strength until it filled the cabin, and spilled out into passage and deck beyond. On the far side of the closed door, Sir Willem felt it reverberate in his sword arm, and loosed a sigh he did not know he held. The lantern boy laughed outright, a bright, quick sound in the night. Lana laid the babe upon the queen's belly. Cords still pulsed faintly, blood-smeared pearlescent skin. Tiny fists, slick crimson, flexed. The child's eyes cracked open, revealing irises of deep amethyst so vivid they seemed to glow. A girl, warm hue, alive. Rhaella raised trembling hands to frame the small face. "Daenerys," she whispered, tasting the name. "Daenerys, my star of the seas." Exhaustion crashed over her, but a smile touched corners of her mouth. Viserys crept forward on knees, wonder pushing fear aside. He reached to stroke the baby's cheek, felt the damp heat, and grinned. Outside, wind finally shifted. The tide began its long exhale toward Dragonstone. Mark down. Benderanel. In King's Landing, no breeze dared move. Heat still radiated from the stones as though wildfire clung in secret veins beneath the crust. Dawn's early glow tinted the red keep tower's rose, but the color could not erase the char smell that clotted every alley. Jaime Lannister woke tangled with Cersei on the narrow couch. An ache lodged in shoulder and thigh where old bruises flowered anew. She had shifted sometime in sleep, pinning his sword arm beneath her head. Pins from her hair lay scattered across the floor like tiny silver javelins. He disentangled carefully, pressed lips to her forehead, then rose. Already faint tumult drifted up. From kitchens, from courtyards where scavengers bartered for charred beams, from the great square where Robert Baratheon's smiths erected a new gallows to remind looters their opportunities were limited. Jaime splashed water on his face, donned fresh linen, and belted his sword. Cersei stirred. "Stay," she murmured. Only one word, but laden with a fortress of meaning. "Stay beside me when Father speaks. Stay beside me when Robert demands. Stay against everything." Jaime swallowed. "I will return before midday," he promised. She caught his wrist, squeezing until nail-pressed skin. If he binds me to that drunken oaf, he protests sobriety now that the crown approaches, Jaime said. Yet he knew sarcasm could not dull the blade she feared. We will find a path. A path that leaves us whole. A pause. And together. He bent, kissed her mouth once. Salt and ash lingered but heat flared too. And left. Markdown. Now. Lord Tywin convened his private council in the solar above Maegor's gardens. A chamber miraculously preserved except for a cracked window pane that allowed in mourning doves. Maps littered the table. The crownland scorched red ink where fields charred. Reached trade routes traced with new toll flags. Dorne outlined in an uncertain yellow Tywin, dabbed absently while thinking. Kevin poured watered wine. Ser Adam Marbrand stood by the door, helm tucked under one arm, battle cloak draped behind like a sanguine banner. We have 3 matters, Tywin announced when Jaime entered. Storm's End Dragonstone, and Robert's betrothal. Jaime seated himself opposite his father, posture loose, but gaze sharp. Storm's End stands surrendered, yet the steward reports its granaries near bare. Stannis brings little besides stubborn pride. Pride may be useful, Tywin said. A stubborn brother anchors the impulsive one, in chains of rivalry if not affection. Lord Stannis will hold Storm's End in Robert's name, until Robert gives him something better. We shall see to it that something never outweighs our own interest. Then, Dragonstone, Kevin prompted. Tywin tapped quill on map. If Rhaella reaches its walls, she may rally remnants of loyalist fleet, perhaps even ferry visories east to seek aid. We cannot spare a full blockade yet, but a swift strike may cripple that refuge. His eyes cut to Jaime. I intend to dispatch a contingent of reliable knights under your command. Jaime heard the unstated. Reliable meant ruthless. To do what? Capture mother and babe? To take the castle before loyalty congeals. If they surrender, we show clemency and bring them under council authority. If they resist, we leave them no fleet to sail farther. The realm will abide no second dragon war. And then, Jaime's jaw flexed. Somewhere upon waves his newborn sibling might lie swaddled, though he did not know of Daenerys yet. Dragonstone's walls are thicker than pride. A siege could last months. A castle can starve faster than a city, Tywin retorted. And we have fleets enough. Redwine sails tomorrow. Tarly's engineers accompany them. Shh. Cersei's letter scraped inside Jaime's breastplate. Father means to wed me to Robert. Tywin's plan to gift Robert both bride and Storm's End's stubborn warden made sense. Place Lannister queen beside a Baratheon king and encircle the realm with gold. But if Jaime departed for Dragonstone, he would leave Cersei to those maneuvers undefended. He cleared throat. Robert has not yet asked for my sister. That dog smells every roast on the spit, Tywin replied. By week's end he will hunger for marriage, if only to prove he can still gird a realm, and not merely break it. We must be first to fill his cup. The image curdled Jaime's stomach. Cersei is no treaty parchment. She is lioness, Tywin corrected. A lioness chooses a mate who keeps her cubs fed. Robert will win with her at his side, and his bastard gleanings aside. She will rule Queen's Landing while he hunts. Exactly the life she once dreamed. Jaime nearly laughed. She dreamed of ruling with me. Tywin's eyes narrowed. Childish fancy long outgrown. Fire flicked inside Jaime, but Kevin coughed. There's the matter of Eddard Stark's presence. The North will balk at a queen whose brother slew their foster king. Then we ensure songs blame the Mad King, Tywin said. Already ravens ply that tale. By the morrow, small folk will recall Jaime as hero who ended the burning. He looked to his son. Your absence from court will help memory shift. So, the true assignment. Send Kingslayer away. Let legend grow soft. Jaime rose, paced to the window where doves cooed uncertain tunes. Heat shimmered over ruined rooftops. Green flame ghosts still smoldered in far alleys. He imagined Dragonstone's basalt halls, cold salt wind, the hiss of black waves upon black sand, and a queen clinging to infants, one of whom might yet carry the realm's last pure dragon blood. "If they yield?" he asked. Tywin's answer came quiet, steel beneath velvet. "Then deliver them gently. If they do not, make end swift." A flare of memory. Aerys shrieking burned them all. Jaime felt sweat bead under arms. The realm could be saved by swords, but sometimes swords cut too deep and left rot. "I need writs of safe conduct," Jaime said slowly, "for those who lay down arms, and for any child spared." "You shall have them," Tywin said. Their eyes met. Barter hammered, bargain struck. Jaime had lost one throne room to fire. He would not lose another to indifference. Mark down. Enderal. Robert Baratheon slept late after the council, but even boorish appetites break upon worry's whetstone. By second hour he rose from straw pallets. He preferred soldiers' bedding to feather, girded his belly with leather again, and strode to the ramparts where ash-streaked men patched crenellations. He carried a tankard of small beer, and watched a knot of masons lower a new cornerstone into place, as if they mended a broken jaw. Ned Stark joined him, gray cloak whipped by a warm wind. Word from the Trident: river-run houses pledge grain if we open river trade by mid-autumn. Robert grunted approval, eyes never leaving masons. Good. But winter comes even to River Run. We will need the Vale's stores too. Royce thinks Arryn willing, but the Eyrie always clings to its own larder. Man? John Arryn raised you both, Ned reminded. And like any father, he'll test if the boy's grown. Robert's gaze shifted toward the city's heart, to smoke curling above the dragon pit skeleton. Tests everywhere, Ned. Tywin gifts me a golden bride, yet gifts rarely ring free. Ned folded arms. Cersei? She's beautiful, and cunning, which is her father's beauty. Robert gulped beer. Would Lyanna approve contrived vows? Pain flickered across Ned's weather-creased face. Lyanna would want you alive, and the realm calm. Robert exhaled through nose, a snort softened by sorrow. Calm. This kingdom sits on sword points, friend. One jolt and we all bleed. Below, a laborer stumbled. The cornerstone slewed, shouts rose. Robert tightened grip on tankard. The stone jerked sideways but found ledge. Crisis averted. He turned away from wall. Find Stannis, he ordered. See what grievance curdles in him this morning. Then fetch that Lannister lioness for formal audience. If I must wed to stitch kingdoms so I can rescue my bride from memory, let the stitching start. Ned caught his sleeve. Remember your mercy yesterday. Keep it today. I will keep it, Robert said, until someone tears it from me. Mark down. Now. Stannis waited in the sept ruins, where beams fused by heat arched like ribs of some colossal whale. Dust motes drifted in broad sun shafts. Petals of burned parchment fluttered underfoot. He had stripped to shirt sleeves rolled high, and stood directing a detail of Stormlanders to recover melted bells for recasting. Nothing wasted. That was his creed. Where others saw charnel ruin, Stannis saw salvage. When Ned approached, he halted the work with single upraised hand. Lord Stark. His grace awake. Walking the walls, Ned said. He means to meet later with Lady Cersei. I know. Stannis wiped ash from palms. I mislike lions in our den, but we have not the men to quarrel yet. He glanced about. I also mislike this wedding. You think Tywin pushes his daughter for other purpose? Tywin pushes every piece for his purpose. Stannis dismissed laborers. They moved on cue. Tell Robert the realm may need Lannister coin, but not Lannister heirs. He should wed some Riverlands maid if he wants hearts, not just coffers. Robert listens to you, Ned said. Stannis' mouth twisted. No. Robert hears me. Listening follows ale, and I do not drink. His eyes fixed on a broken archway where vines clambered char-black stone. When I sailed from Storm's End, I thought to bear him tidings of victory. Instead, I find ruin, and our new allies wearing crimson cloaks. Ned studied him. Will you stand with us when decisions turn sharp? I stand with the realm, Stannis said. But mark me, if children of dragons seek refuge, we must choose whether mercy today becomes war 10 years hence. Ned's gaze drifted. He had once seen a lynx kit frozen in winter, mercy killed by his father before it starved. Mercy can be blade or balm. Men seldom know which at the giving. I will carry your thoughts, he said. Stannis returned nod and resumed salvage. Sweat beading across high forehead though morning remained cool. Mark down. Varys the spider donned plain brown robes that smelled faintly of mildew, slipped through tunnels beneath the Red Keep, and emerged in the cellar of a shuttered wine zinc at the foot of Visenia's hill. The zinc's proprietor had perished in flame. Charred bones still curled near the hearth. Varys stepped over them with practiced indifference and opened a trap in the floorboards. Dust billowed. Below, in a chamber no larger than a merchant's stall, Elia Martell waited with her children. The mask of calm she wore could not hide dark smudges under eyes, nor the tremor in her fingers as she rocked infant Aegon. Rhaenys clutched a doll of singed straw, humming. News? Elia asked. The realm crowns a protector, not yet a king. Varys lowered himself cross-legged, movements fluid despite girth. But talk of a stag-lion match quickens. Once wedding bells ring, attention will drift from missing dragonlings. We must decide where you sail. Dorne, she said without pause. Prince Oberyn sweeps the sands for banners even now, yet distance breeds risk. Many watch the seas. A Dornish ship raising sail from Blackwater Bay will draw suspicion. I will crawl to Dorne if ships fail, Elia answered, voice low but fierce. I have lost enough to pride. Varys tapped thumb to chin. A Braavosi cog departs tomorrow carrying cedar planks and orphan girls indentured as seamstresses. I might secure billet for a tutor and her charges. The master is amenable to coin and secrecy. Elia tightened hold on baby. I will dress as small folk. But the realm will hear rumor soon. When they seek us, they will find only rumors chasing fog. Varys' smile fluttered. Yet should Braavos welcome you, Prince Oberyn may send swift ships south round Dorne, and land you quietly at Sunspear. None will anticipate such art. Aegon hiccuped. Elia dabbed milk from his chin. Her voice softened. How long must they hide? Until lords cease sharpening knives for a throne, Varys said. Meaning, perhaps forever. Perhaps a year. Time weaves tapestries we cannot yet read. He set a small purse by her knee. Coin and documents forged by master scriveners. Night after next, the cog anchors at the muddy bank. A lantern will shine green. You will board with the orphan girls. Elia's shoulders sagged. Relief warred with dread. And you? Spiders live where webs spin. He rose. Go north, south, around the world. My whispers will find you, princess. She studied him. Why? One word. Heavy. Varys opened palms. Because children deserve more than crowns and pyres. Mark down. Ender Sal. 3 hours later, Robert Baratheon received Cersei Lannister in the Tower of Justice. A high chamber walled by wild rose marble, whose veins mapped storms in pale pink. She wore green velvet slashed to reveal gold silk beneath, her hair brushed to molten sheen. Jaime escorted her to threshold and retreated. A dozen courtiers watched. Robert bowed, straight-backed, almost solemn. Cersei inclined head, eyes flicking to Hammer leaning in corner. They spoke of the city's wounds, of food and water, yet conversation quickly narrowed to union. I am not fool, Robert said. Your Lord Father hopes our houses chained. Cersei's smile curved. Chains may feel silk if forged by choice. Choice, then. He poured wine, offered a cup. She sipped. He studied the grace of her throat and felt old grief subside like tide leaving shore. If we wed, I grant you queenship. What grant you me? Loyalty, she said bold. Not the fawning loyalty maesters write of, but the fierce kind that guards a husband's back while he sleeps. Lannister gold. Lannister wit. And heirs with hair like summer wheat. Nemnumdrand. Robert's jaw tightened at the word heirs. He saw another woman, dark-haired, pale, lying beneath gnarled weirwood limbs, whispering, "Promise me." The memory stabbed. He bled a heartbeat. "Very well," he said, voice low. "But the realm must first rest. 5 moons, time to harvest, to bury dead, to rebuild. At the feast of first frost, we bind." Cersei nodded, a queen receiving decree. Yet inside, resentment ticked. 5 moons to linger in uncertainty. 5 moons for spiders and stags and silent wolves to spin doubts. Still, she smiled. "As you command, Lord." They sealed promise by touching goblets. Wine tasted of pomegranates, tart and sweet. Outside the tower, Jaime awaited. Cersei emerged, face composed. When their eyes met, she shook her head minutely. "Not now, not here." Jaime's fingers curled. He turned away. Swallowing copper taste. Markdown. Maine. That night, Helenin of the mismatched eyes donned soot-black cloak and led 2 acolytes into vaults beneath the Alchemist's Guild. Torches guttered blue-green, wildfire's ghost. They passed collapsed arches, stepped over crystal vials scattered like dragon teeth. At length they reached the great bronze door where hundreds of untouched jars lay stacked ceiling high. Halin pressed ear again. Silence. He drew a key of ineffable forge, inserted it, twisted thrice sunwise, twice widdershins. The lock thumped. Inside, rank air greeting them smelled of pine pitch and old wine. Each jade pot gleamed in dim torchlight, painted with glyphs marking potency. Hallin's pupils dilated with wonder. "Enough to reshape history," he whispered. An acolyte shivered. "Should we not surrender it to Lord Protector?" "Protector of realm, yes," Hallin said. "But not of secrets." He fingered one jar shaped like a sleeping cat. "Wildfire chooses no king. It serves those who dare command flame." He meant himself. And perhaps a queen unborn who might one day demand the dance resume. They began cataloging. A ledger rose. Counts, notes on stability, were best to store until new vaults erected. Hallin turned quill between inked fingers, imagining catapults, imagining sails igniting across Blackwater Bay, imagining dragons reborn in green. He smiled. Mark down. Enderal. 3 days later, Jaime rode through the city gates at head of 300 knights. Half Lannister, half Stormland volunteers sworn to him by Robert's writ. Crimson and gold, mingled with crowned stags and mailed fists. Behind rumbled wagons laden with siege gear, casks of lamp oil, and crates of bread apprised from Tyrell granaries. Cersei stood on the terrace above the outer ward, ivory sleeves billowing. Her face betrayed nothing, but when Jaime tipped helm, she touched 2 fingers to lips, then let them fall. Promise or farewell? He could not know. He spurred honor-bound, his white destrier named during boyhood, down the switchback road, past hovels where small folk peered from patched curtains. Some hurled flowers, others cast curses. Kingslayer rode on. At the riverside, a brisk wind rattled pennants. Galleys waited. Lannister crimson hulls trimmed in black, sails furled tight. Oarsmen lounged on benches, muscles corded, eating onion and salt pork. Flags of the faith streamed from sterns to placate gods for violence ahead. As Jaime dismounted, Sir Loras Hightower, sent by Oldtown to observe, offered a scroll. From Grand Maester, new bridegroom chosen for Princess Elia. Martell fleet recalls from Bloodstone Isles. Jaime cracked seal, scanned lines, and snorted. Martells always play long game. He crumpled the letter. Loras raised brow. Word also of a Bravosi cog missing since last night. Harbor master claims pirates. Some say rats. Jaime's heart skipped. Elia dots. Ares dot. If they had sailed, good. If vanished, better. They were beyond swords now, perhaps. "Thank you," he said. Ship's horns bellowed. Lines cast off. Jaime stepped aboard the flagship Golden Ghost and felt deck tilt beneath boots. He looked back once. King's Landing shimmered behind heat haze, roofs half black, half new tiled, spires poking heaven like rusted nails. Above, smoke still lingered but thinned, revealing sky pale as rubbed steel. He wondered what histories would write, that he sailed to finish what his sword began, or to stay a new madness. His white cloak snapped in sea gust. He caught its edge, anchored the cloth under sword belt. Some stains never wash out, but fresh wind can stiffen torn fabric. "Row!" boomed the coxswain. Drums thudded. Oars dipped. The Golden Ghost slid from dock, wake churning green-tinged water. Other galleys followed, hulls creaking like giants' beds. Upon the terrace Cersei turned away. Shadows of guards swallowed her gown. She pressed fist to mouth, tasting the wine of earlier promise. 5 moons, an eternity, or a blink. She walked inside. Mark down. Far across the water, Dragonstow's black fortress rose from obsidian cliffs. Windows glowing orange where forges burned. Lady Elenda Celtigar stood upon Sea Dragon Tower watching cormorants wheel. A messenger's raven perched on her wrist. Scroll bound under wing. She stroked its feathers. "My lady?" asked her steward. Elenda smiled, eyes glittering. "The queen comes. Prepare the hearths." Storm clouds gathered on horizon, bruised and roiling. Lightning forked, closer now than dawn before. The narrow sea stirred. Mark down. Men? In the city, Varys glided through grand corridors wearing perfumed silks once more, his brown rags discarded. He paused beside a wall brazier where Tywin's newest decree hung. Curfew at moonrise, no blades within the keep save sworn men, bread ration doubled for orphans. He touched parchment fondly, as though it were a child's cheek. "Small signs," he murmured. Eddard Stark's voice rumbled behind him. "Signs of what?" Varys turned, face a mask of humble surprise. "Of healing, my lord. The lion and the stag mend stone where dragons scorched." "Ben?" Ned's gray eyes studied him. "Dragons may return. They always do." A gentle shrug. "In story or in scale. Stories sometimes kill." Ned stepped close. "If Elia Martell and her children live, where would you hide them?" Varys widened eyes. "Hide? I am but humble servant, no smuggler." "Spare me." Ned's hand settled on hilt. "I once kept a bastard hidden for honor. I know the weight." The spider's smile thinned. "Then you know Ben's of the backbend justice too. Ask yourself, does saving one child outweigh peace for thousands?" Ned's silence answered. Varys inclined head. "Should rumors reach me of misplaced royalty, I shall whisper loudly enough you need not draw steel to hear." He drifted away. Ned stared after, feeling chilled despite heat that still haunted corridors. Mark down. Oh. Night again. The moon rose half-shrouded behind lingering smoke, bathing King's Landing in sickly light. In the Red Keep's highest solarium, Cersei donned a plain wool cloak and climbed stairs to the rookery. Ravens croaked in their cages. She found parchment and quill, penned swift lines. "Jaime, storms gather above your wake. Father weaves gold nets. I weave steel. Return swiftly, or I will cut chains myself." Eddie. She bound the note to a raven's leg, chose one bread for distance, opened the hatch. Wind pulled the bird into vaulted night. Cersei watched until it was only flicker, then nothing. She closed the hatch with a click. Below, Robert snored in a bed still strange. Across the city Tywin calculated cost of brick and barrel. Farther, Ned railed at memory, Stannis at pride. And beyond all, in a cabin smelling of myrrh and salt, newborn Daenerys Targaryen opened violet eyes to a world that had tried to burn her to cinder before first breath. She found her mother's breast, latched, and drank. Outside the porthole, a rogue star streaked across sky. burning white-blue before vanishing over horizon, fleeting, fierce, and utterly indifferent to thrones. Markdown 9. When dawn came, wave crests glimmered pewter beneath thick cloud. On the Golden Ghost, Jaime paced quarterdeck reading foam patterns, pondering Tywin's orders. Capture, not kill. But orders flex when steel sings. He knew. And what of babes? Mothers? How many times could he choose sword paths before the edge turned inward? The boatswain's cry snapped him back. Sail ho, lord, off the windward bow. Jaime lifted spyglass. A merchant cog, striped hull, tattered foresail. Adrift, no colors. Closer. Scorch marks along gunwale. Deck deserted save gull breakfasting on something limp. An odor rode the breeze. Rot and pitch stink. Hold water, Jaime commanded. The great galley slowed, oars shipping. He watched the cog drift parallel. Letters on stern once spelled sea dreamer. Now, char flake. He counted no masts besides stump forward. Pirates. Fire? Plague? Motion flickered near hatch. Spyglass tightened. A figure crawled. Small, cloaked. Gold hair. Blood tightened in Jaime's veins. He signaled archers to ready, but withheld volley. The figure rose. A woman, clothing singed, clutching bundle. She staggered to rail, waved weakly. Launch boat. Jaime barked. Men scrambled. Moments later, a longboat skirted to cog, grapnels biting hull. 2 knights boarded, disappeared below, then returned helping the woman. Jaime waited as they rowed back. She collapsed onto deck. Jaime knelt. Her cloak parted to reveal acolyte gray beneath, but the face beneath hood was one he had never seen. High Valyrian cheekbones, eyes so pale they looked white. The bundle stirred. A baby, thin wails. "Who are you?" he asked. "Merchant's nurse," she rasped. "Pirates came. Fire." She coughed. "Black phlegm." "Please." "Child's mother died." "Save." Jaime touched infant brow. Feverish, but breathing. He motioned. "Surgeon." As they bore woman below, she clutched his hand. Said, "Kingslayer has mercy." She whispered. "True." He froze. She smiled faintly, then eyes rolled. Surgeon pressed fingers to throat. Alive. The Golden Ghost resumed course. Jaime stood, infant cradled against chainmail. Already, he could feel row of new scars buckle worldline. He gazed east, where Dragonstone's silhouette lurked behind curtain of rain. "Mercy," he murmured. "We sail to test the word. Markdown. Now." And so the Game of Thrones took first slow breath of new era. A realm scarred, a king uncrowned, a queen in flight, a lion's net tightening, and sparks of hidden wildfire banking to embers in gilded dark. Above all of them, summer sky darkened with distant rumble. Whether of oncoming storm or dragons beating wings, none could yet discern. But wings there were. In a cramped cabin swaddled with salt-stained cloth, tiny Daenerys clenched her fist, dreaming of heat and shadow. Her brother Viserys whispered tales into her ear of dragons that once ruled sky and stone. He named her Stormborn, for thunder boomed just then, and the name fitted like destiny's glove. Beyond, across leagues of churning water, thunder answered, the hooves of ambition, the drums of siege, the roiling laughter of gods who roll dice with men's crowns. Westeros exhaled, bracing for the next breath. It would be fire-tinged once more.